I'm currently thinking about three different hypothetical price scenarios when it comes to Zksync's native token called ZK, and this is even maybe assuming, let's say, there is a fully fledged type of altcoin season during this cycle. But even though nothing I say is financial advice, this again is just what I have on my mind. But nonetheless, the first scenario I do want to talk about is maybe the idea of 80 cents. Now that's around a 13x from here, and market cap at that point, if we were to consider the current circulating supply, would be around $6 billion. Now, when I take a look at something like that, why wouldn't it necessarily be something too surprising to me if, let's say, maybe it did happen? It's because I like the fundamentals of Zksync, and let me explain why. When it comes to Zksync, it's a layer 2 scaling solution that utilizes zero knowledge rollups and as well as zero knowledge proofs. Now, people may be thinking, okay, what does this even mean? Now, I'm going to break this down into two parts. The first part is going to be about zero knowledge, and the second part is going to be why a layer 2 I think is pretty, cool. However, if we take a look at, for instance, right, the benefit of zero knowledge technology is, let's say, for allowing for greater scalability and enhancing privacy. So that's pretty cool. Now, I kind of want to harp also when it comes to the layer 2 side of things, because sometimes people like to say, there's a lot of layer 2s out there when it comes to Ethereum. Who cares? But then, in my opinion, I care because I think this one is pretty cool. Again, I like the aspects of zero knowledge. And also on top of that, we have to take a look at what is even like the goal, arguably, I would say, when it comes to these Ethereum layer 2s. I think it's, in a sense, the way I were to take a look at it, if I were to put an analogy, kind of like allowing Ethereum to be enjoyed, but at the same time not having to deal with certain drawbacks. Like, for instance, what are those drawbacks, right? The sky-high gas fees when it comes to Ethereum, which I'm not a fan of, and also the arguable scalability issues. But don't get me wrong, Ethereum, I think, is a very popular layer 1 blockchain. I do think that the adoption is really fantastic, but then at the same time, there are some kind of drawbacks there, and I think that's where Ethereum layer 2 does step in. And I think something like Zksync, again, it's not kind of the only layer 2 out there, right? But then I still like the fundamentals of it nonetheless. However, we also take a look at there are something called ZK chains, right? And these are quite essentially united in an elastic network. However, what do I think makes this kind of cool? It's because the amazing thing about ZK chains, in my perspective, is that they have amazing interoperability. Now, why is interoperability such a, I think, key aspect sometimes? It's because lacking interoperability, I think, is arguably not such a good thing. It's like, for instance, right? There's many networks out there, many blockchains, but because a lot of them are independent of one another, they don't have this ability in some cases to freely send data and value to each other, meaning that if that were to be the case, it would then be lacking in terms of interoperability. So I think when it comes to having that aspect as well, when it comes to Zksync, again, arguably when I take a look at ZK chains and the aspects of interoperability, I find that pretty awesome, and also I like the whole vibe overall. And when it comes to ZK, arguably, let's say at the price of 80 cents in a situation where, let's say, there is a fully fledged type of altcoin season, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Now, the next scenario I do want to explore is maybe the idea of 90 cents. It's a 15x from here, and market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be nearly 7 billion, which I don't think seems like something too outlandish to me. I mean, I get it. Again, sometimes you may be thinking, okay, who cares about that market cap? But if I take a look at something like, for instance, Shiba Inu market cap back in 2021 was like around 40 billion. This wouldn't necessarily surprise me. I don't think it's something too outlandish. Now, if the market cap needed was like, 40 billion, 50 billion, then that's a different case, right? But then just around, or should I say slightly under 7 billion, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But again, only time will tell. However, I'd also do want to take a look at the final price scenario, which is maybe arguably, hypothetically, the idea of $1. Around a 16.5x from here, market cap at that point would be nearly 8 billion. Again, the way I view it is that doesn't seem like too outlandish of a market cap, but even besides that, I am liking just the whole vibe overall right now when it comes to, I would say, the scenario that I'm experiencing right now. Now, let me explain why, even though some people may be thinking, okay, take a look at altcoins, they're not necessarily doing the best. Totally understand that. But supposedly there's over 600 million crypto owners currently, which is allegedly more than ever before in history. I also take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF. If this altcoin season, if we do ever even see one during this cycle, if it looked better than back in 2021, wouldn't necessarily surprise me because, even back in the peak of the 2021 bull run, there was around 300 million crypto owners. Now we have over 600 million. So, I mean, it's just a very big difference. Wouldn't necessarily surprise me if the altcoin season did look better. Now, when is the exact time it's going to happen? To me, I will not be able to know that because, again, how can I? But the only thing I can do, in my opinion, is that whether or not it ever even does happen, be it in, let's say, maybe October, November, December, or even 2026, sometime around Q1 at that time, right? Like, let's say January, February, or March, whenever. It's going to be beyond my control, but the only thing that is within my control is just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. That's it. You know, I'm not telling anyone to do anything when it comes to ZK, but this is just my outlook, and I'm just staying patient. Literally, that's it. But in the meantime, again, I do like what I see when it comes to the fundamentals of Zksync. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.